This is the Samsung Galaxy Note 10 Plus 5G, and today we're going to be talking about whether or not this phone is still worth it in 2022. So let's get started. The first thing I want to address about this phone is, in my opinion, how well it's aged. As you can see, the borders and bezels are still really thin. So if I open a white screen, you can see the bezels and the chin are absolutely tiny. And I think the hole punch camera, which is still used to this day, looks great on this phone. It definitely doesn't make it look outdated, especially as it was released in 2019. It's going to be hard for you to see this because the phone is broken, but this is a budget phone released in 2019, and you can see that chin there, you can see that sort of slight distinction between the chin and the actual phone, and it definitely looks a lot more outdated when you put them next to each other. I mean, I can see it better at my end, but the chin on this just makes it feel so old compared to this Galaxy Note 10 Plus 5G. The other thing that keeps this phone up to date is the under-screen fingerprint reader, which is a great feature, and it definitely helps the phone feel more modern. It also has Face ID, which is, as you can see, shown by it saying face does not match. It doesn't really seem to understand that the camera isn't a face. The overall design of the phone still feels really sleek and modern. It's got nice thin sides, unlike some of the budget phones like I'm talking about, which tend to be just a bit thicker and more plasticky. The Note 10 Plus 5G also still has an S Pen, which, if you like that sort of thing, perhaps you're an artist, perhaps you're someone that uses the S Pen a lot, then this is still perfect to be used in 2022. Now, as for the Galaxy Note 10 Plus 5G's connections, as by its name you may have noticed, it obviously is a 5G phone. So when you go on mobile networks, you can see here 5G is selected on this phone, which does mean that this phone has the ability to be 5G connected as long as you have a 5G ready SIM and contract with your provider. Now, this could be seen as a pro or a con depending on your personality, but the display is 6.8 inches. It is very clear, and I think it gets quite bright. I'm going to get the brightness to its full extent, and you can see my camera is struggling to sort of focus on it on white screens, as it is an extremely bright phone. But the screen is really clear, really vibrant, and definitely very good when you're watching content. As it's such a large screen, you can really immerse yourself in it. So I'm stood a few centimeters away from the Note 10 Plus 5G. That name is starting to get long and repetitive, and the speakers are very clear. They're on full volume, so let me just let you listen to that. The levels of the speakers on this phone is definitely very good, and I really do think that this phone is a great phone. It's really optimized. You can use the home screen in landscape to get to all your applications, so you can quickly get to them in landscape and of course in portrait, which is definitely a good feature, and I really think it's held up the test of time really, really well. Now, whilst at the moment the Galaxy Note 10 Plus 5G is running One UI 4.1 and Android version 12, which is the most up-to-date, it is not going to be getting Android 13, which is really disappointing on a phone that is only 3 years old. I really think this phone could be supported. It's got 12 gigabytes of RAM and a lot of storage, so I do think this phone probably would be able to run Android 13 extremely smoothly. I will have to admit, a major benefit of brands such as Apple, like this iPhone 6s, which has been supported for a long time, and it's still running the newest software, and the phone was released a long time ago. To be exact, the iPhone 6s was released in 2015, and it's not going to get iOS 16, but it is currently up to date, which is such a long time. It's actually lasted 7 years, which is really long compared to this Note 10 Plus 5G, which can't even hit the 3-year mark. I must admit though, this software is very smooth and fluid, so although I'll be getting the next software update, this software I think will last you for a fair long time. Also, do know it will get security updates, I believe, for another year, so it's not just going to suddenly be dropped from security updates, but it's just not going to get any new features like Android 13. Now, we've talked about some great things about the phone, and whilst that is definitely a con, I do have another con to add to it. This is personal opinion and genuinely will vary on person, but I really dislike having the power button on the left-hand side of the phone. So when you're looking at the phone, most phones have the power button on the right-hand side, but the Galaxy Note 10 Plus 5G has it on the left-hand side, which personally I am not a fan of. My phone has it on the right-hand side. Most phones, like the iPhone 6S, I've got it next to me, so I may as well demonstrate it, have it on the right-hand side instead of the left. They tend to have volume on the left and power on the right for iPhone. And with Android, some of the newer Androids have the power on the right, as I'm showing with this budget Galaxy, and the volume also on the right. And the Note 10 Plus, really, it does take adapting to. You'll get used to it when you get it, but I do think it takes getting used to. The saver for this for me is the fact that it's got tap to wake, or double tap to wake in Samsung's case. So when you pick the phone up, you can simply wake it by just tapping it, which definitely is an advantage. As for battery life on this phone, it is 4,300 milliamp hours, which is a good amount, and it will definitely see you through a day unless you're a really intensive user. But now we've got to come to another point, which is the cameras. So I'm just going to take a photo of some technology or something along those lines in this room. Now this room is well lit. We have lamps, we have a ceiling light, so it should, in theory, not have any issue taking a photo. Obviously, you're viewing this through a camera, but when I zoom in on text, I can even read the bit on the iPhone, which, just for context, I've zoomed in and you can read the designed by Apple in California and assembled in China part, which on the phone itself you can see is really small. Obviously, I can lift the phone up to you and you can read it there, but from far away, considering this photo was taken at that angle, that is really crisp. You can zoom right into the iPhone logo and it's really clear. So that is definitely a good thing. The cameras have aged really well and the sensors are extremely good on this phone. I'm just going to take a photo using the ultra-wide lens, see how that does. So the ultra-wide lens, as you can see, if I zoom into the text, you can definitely see it's lost some quality. Now, obviously, it is an ultra-wide lens. We don't expect it to be the same, and you wouldn't really be using it if you're trying to take a photo of text, but you can see that when you zoom in, it's a lot blurrier on that text when you compare it to the main lens. Now this phone has been used by quite a few family members, and as you can see here, there is a minor crack on the lens. I don't know if you can actually get that in focus on the camera, but there's a crack on the lens about there, and dust has got into the 2x camera lens. You can just about see it there. That does mean I am unable to test the 2x camera lens to its full extent. So to be able to test it, it will be a bit fuzzy, mostly because of the dirt in the lens, but you can see it still works. And you can, even with the 2x lens, look, you can zoom in and see and read the text really clearly. So the 2x lens is great, and the optical zoom, if I put this phone as far away as I can and try and zoom in on the text, you can see I'm just zooming in on the text. You can still read the iPhone and even the designed by Apple in California. So the camera has definitely held up well, because the phone I was holding here and the phone I was taking a photograph of, bear with me, is there. So there was a bit of distance, and the zoom on this phone clearly has done very well. Now I've just used the selfie camera to take a photo of the back of the iPhone 6S, and I've mirrored it. And as you can see, the selfie camera, you can zoom in, and yet again you can read that really small text, which is good, but I don't think it stood the test of time as well as the rear cameras. I do think it is lacking. Perhaps when you're taking a photo of a person, I don't think the skin tones are perfect. With that all being said, would I buy, or in my case, use this phone in 2022? My honest answer is yes. I still think that rear sort of panel stood up to the test of time really well. I think it looks really cool. It still looks really modern, although it is a bit of a fingerprint magnet. You can see all my fingerprints on there, even though I wiped this before I started the video. If you're using this phone, you will have to keep a cloth handy and keep rubbing off any fingerprints to keep that back looking great, or you can do what most people would do, which is slap it in a case. Would I use this phone? Yes, 100%. It's got so much RAM and so much storage. It's got really good capabilities. However, if you asked me to use a Note 8, I'd be much more reluctant, as that phone I do think really lacks the software. Now, I don't want to throw random information at the end, but just for context, the Galaxy Note 8 is running Android 9. So if someone said to me, would I take the Galaxy Note 8 or a mid-range phone from 2022, I'd take a mid-range phone from 2022 any day, purely because of the fact it's running Android 9. But the Note 10 Plus running Android 12 will keep me going for a fair few years before it begins to feel really outdated. So yes, the answer is I would pick this phone and use this phone in 2022. Whether you would is another matter, and I hope this video has been informative and helpful. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you love tech content, and I'll see you around. Just